We are in the most skeptical consumer environment we have ever been in. That is an incredible opportunity for us to say, what can I provide that helps them feel more comfortable with those things? The chances that you are going to rise to the top of those options is so much higher.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. I first want to thank the sponsors, both Dental Intelligence and the Doc Sites, for their support, allowing me to come to your inbox every Friday at 5 a.m. with a new episode. My guest is Melanie Deziel. She is the author of the Content Fuel Framework, How to Generate Unlimited Story Ideas and Prove It, exactly how modern marketers earn trust. In addition to giving keynotes, leading workshops, and coaching clients on organized creativity, Melanie is the co-founder of the Creator Kitchen Mastermind for Creatives. Melanie is also the co-founder of two B2B marketplaces, The Convoy and Group Ups, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. Having been the first ever editor of branded content at the New York Times, a founding member of HuffPost's brand storytelling team, and director of creative strategy for Time Incorporated's 35 U.S. magazines. Melanie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm psyched to chat.
I am super excited to chat. So let's talk a little bit about how we were introduced. So I was in Savannah at the Grits and Nachos event, and I was there as a speaker, and I was there as a Bird Eye representative. And at my table, I was sitting next to this company, which I hadn't really know much about, called Group Ups. And I met your husband, Yazin, and we connected and we had a really good conversation. And he said, you know what? You're a speaker, you're an author, you're a podcaster. You need to connect with my wife. And here we are, and we've connected, and we're having her on my podcast. So You have an interesting history starting at the New York Times. So can you just briefly expand on that, and then we'll jump right into the content?
Yeah, so I've always been a storyteller. I've always been really curious about things and wanting to know the story behind things. And so I started out in journalism thinking that that was basically, carte blanche permission to be nosy and ask people's stories. And it definitely was. But I found that, there weren't quite as many journalism jobs as there were when I decided to start studying journalism. So I found my way into the world of marketing and basically realized that I could take a lot of those skills that I was using on the journalism side of things, finding stories, interviewing people, finding ways to engage people with, otherwise complicated information, trying to make that palatable to them, can do all those same things in a marketing context, in a sales context, and help small business owners, creators, entrepreneurs learn those skills too, to better tell their stories. And so the last 10 years or so, that's really been sort of my overall goal, in different forms, whether that's writing books, doing workshops, other things as well. It's really just trying to help people find their inner creativity and put that to use for whatever their personal or business goals are for them.
So let's talk about what content means in context of a dental practice, because content in dental practice, I think, is different from a lot of other industries. So let's talk about content in context to a dental practice.
Well, and content is also kind of a buzzword. I fully acknowledge that, right? Everybody's a content creator. You've got content agencies. You're probably seeing that word thrown around quite a bit. So in the context of what we're talking about here for a dental practice, we are talking about any communication that you create with the intention of connecting with your audience. So that could be the content of your website, right? You have copy, video, images, all kinds of different media there, created very intentionally to create a certain impression or create a relationship with your audience. You're probably doing the same thing on one or more social channels where you're creating, again, graphics, video, written content, audio. If you have a podcast like this, that counts as content in my book. So anything where you're creating with some sort of intention to say, I'm trying to tell a story, communicate a message, create an impression, build a relationship, any of that creation counts as content for the purposes of our discussion today. And when it comes to a dental practice, you have additional context that some folks don't, which is that usually you're also having some sort of pre-appointment, post-appointment communication happening via email or text message, maybe by phone call with phone scripts as well. And you're also having those in-office experiences as well, whether that's like a screen in the waiting room where you're cycling through different content that's showing folks what you're up to or telling them more about your practice, brochures. I mean, there's almost an endless number of opportunities as a practice owner to communicate with your prospects, your current patients, and maybe even past patients as well.
I think one of the things I think is really important about content is you have to know your audience. You have to know the type of person you're looking to attract. Someone who's a pediatric office is going to have different content and go to different places than a general dentist is going to be. So, I mean, you have so many different sites that are out there now, so many different social channels, so many different ways to get the content out there. As you mentioned, I look at myself as a content creator because I put a lot of content out there. I post a lot of stuff, but my podcast is one of my biggest content creators because we're talking and we're creating content for people to view and listen to. So I'm just curious, which sites do you think are the most important now? And again, I know it's very much based on your audience. So a pedo office is definitely more Instagram and TikTok than a general dental practice is going to be. But can you kind of give like the top 3 or 4 sites that you have to, if you're not on right now, that you have to be on and posting content on a consistent basis?
We have this joke in marketing, which is the answer to every question is it depends. So I'll give you the slightly more nuanced it depends here, which is that, again, it depends on your audience, right? So if you are thinking about which channel is going to be the best fit for you, there's a couple questions I want you to ask to kind of determine where you should be. The first is where your audience is. So you mentioned like a pedo office might be spending more time on, say, Facebook or Pinterest, for example. We know those are big with moms, and moms are often the decision makers with a lot of children's healthcare decisions. So that's probably a good place to be. Ditto for TikTok. I know we sometimes like to think TikTok is just for the youngins, but the youngins are not so young anymore. And so we also have Gen Z and millennials who are often young parents that are in that space as well. If you are looking to more of an older audience, maybe you specialize in dentures or, something that is really targeted toward more of an older audience, less of a child audience or a young adult, then you probably definitely want to be on Facebook. That's where we tend to see the oldest population, just in terms of who you're trying to reach. And if you happen to be in a certain area, like you're serving a specific community, there may be local groups, whether that's like a local group on Facebook. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. I know we have like a Raleigh moms group, Northern Raleigh community group. There's all these kinds of niche communities that you can be active within to reach those folks that are specifically local. The one thing I would say is pretty true across the board is you certainly want to be paying attention to your Google business page. So your Google business page is the page that comes up if someone searches for your practice. They may or may not include words like near me, in Raleigh, in North Raleigh, something like that, right? But that's the page that comes up on maps. The reason you want to put a lot of attention there is if someone is doing a search like that, looking for an endo near me, or they're looking for an orthodontist near me, or something like that, and they're coming up with several options, and yours has no photos, no hours listed, no description of who you are, no photos of your team, you start to look like a lot less attractive of an option because they can't gather the information they need to make that informed decision. So we can definitely talk more about what makes a Google page look good, but that's a place where you definitely want to be focusing your attention no matter who your audience is.
Especially if you're a brick and mortar business like a dental practice. And you didn't mention one thing, but you've got to get reviews, which is my forte, is you need to have reviews on your Google My Business page in order to attract the business. So a couple things back to social. So, it's funny. You didn't mention Twitter. You didn't mention a couple of the other more popular, or well-known, and let's call it X, whatever you want to call it now. But there's a couple sites you didn't mention, but also, what do you think about Nextdoor as an option as well? So I wanted to touch base on the things that we didn't talk about so people don't say, well, what about this? What about this?
Yeah. Well, look, like I said, you could be anywhere, and there's always going to be an example of, probably a dental practice specifically that finds a way to make any of these networks work. What we see with X, Twitter specifically, is at the moment, it's not seen as one of the most brand safe environments. There's a lot of changes in their regulations. So my general advice at this point has been to kind of hold off, wait and see. You want to make sure that if you are putting effort into putting content out on a platform, any platform, that you're comfortable with what content you're going to be alongside, next to, before and after. And that's not always the case with X in the transition that it's in right now. So little bit of caution around that. LinkedIn is another one. If you have a largely professional audience, for example, maybe you're in a major metro area and you tend to serve a lot of lawyers, or you're over on Wall Street or something like that, and you can target those types of folks based on their profession that happens to be big in your area, that could be a smart decision too. And Nextdoor, I think it falls into that same category of sort of those local groups, right? If you can find something that is geographic, that is, local, targeted to your local area, that's always going to be a great way for you to get involved. And I know we're talking social media and we're thinking mostly digital, but little shout out to my origins here. Your local newspapers, your local alternative weekly papers, your local regional magazines are also really great ways for you to connect with people in your community, to share your opinions on things, to be visible, and to overall put out content. So there's really no bad place, I would say. There's nowhere that I'd say don't bother. But there are some tried and true, and that's where we start to see, Facebook, for example. Instagram is another one that offers the same sort of sophisticated targeting that Facebook does, of course, since they're owned by Facebook, and then Google as well.
Got it. And I agree with you. I just wanted to bring up the other stuff. LinkedIn is business to business. So if you don't look, if you're not selling another business, there's no reason to be on LinkedIn. And look, I look at X or Twitter as your celebrity. Nobody cares what I'm going to tweet, so I think that's also, if you're a celebrity and you want to do some tweeting or whatever they call it now, it can't be Xing. I don't know what they call it, but
eating.
Who knows? Who knows? No, I agree 100% with your choice there. So, we'll get to Google My Business in a couple of minutes, but, why is content important as a tool for building trust and attracting patients?
So the biggest thing that we see now, and this is important for any industry, but especially in a business like a dental practice where trust is so core, they have to trust you as a practitioner. They have to trust your expertise, your staff, all of that. We are in the most skeptical consumer environment we have ever been in, which means our consumers, our patients, our prospects, they default to distrust. They don't believe a thing we say. And that's depressing. I get it. Like, it can sound like a problem, but one thing to really think about is this is actually an opportunity. We know that when someone is looking for a new provider, they're looking to get some specialty work done, they're looking for a place to bring their kids for dental care, they're going to be approaching it with skepticism in mind. That's the mindset whenever they are looking for any sort of transaction, right? Including finding a new provider. So that is an incredible opportunity for us to say, what can I provide that will make them believe that I am who I say I am, believe that we do what we say we do, and that we will deliver the results that they are expecting? If you can provide content, written, video, audio, photo, anything that helps them feel more comfortable with those things, the chances that you are going to rise to the top of those options is so much higher. And again, the bar is on the floor. Like, people are coming in not trusting a dang thing they see or hear. So anything we can do to help make them more comfortable, to sort of lend credibility, and reviews play a huge part in that. Just earning the trust and helping them see that, like, we're the real deal. We're not just, any old Joe Schmo who put up a shingle.
You mentioned the couple of various forms of content someone create. They can create a reel, they can create video, they can create photo, they can almost do anything. What do you find as the most, and I think the answer is going to be video, but I'll still ask it. What do you find is the most engaging? Is there something that somebody should do more often, or what's too much content? Can you go into that? Because there's always people saying, well, how much do I post? How often do I post? Those types of things are really important questions.
So, I don't know. We may have a slight difference of opinion here, Len. So hopefully we could still be friends, but the answer is it depends, right? Video does tend to be really engaging. We see people tend to spend more time on page. They tend to spend more time on a post that has video compared to something that's just text. So that's definitely true. It certainly tends to get folks' attention a little bit more than the other more static formats, but there really is no single answer for how much or how often or when to post. There was a time period from like 2013 to like 2017 where the internet was just awash with graphics that said, like, you must post 3.7 times a day, and it's got to be 1 p.m. and then 2:17 p.m. Everybody knew the magical silver bullet of when to post and what to post where. What we know now is that so much of the internet is such a personalized experience. It is so algorithmically driven that most of those things just don't apply anymore. The best thing for you to do if you're looking to figure out when should I be posting, or which platforms, is to look at your own data. So go into whatever platform you're using. If you're using Google, you're using LinkedIn, you're using Facebook or Instagram, look at your own metrics to say, when does my audience come onto this platform and look at my content? That's going to be the best indicator of when you should be posting on what platforms, because anyone who's giving you that recommendation is almost certainly using their own data about their audience on a different platform for their specific content, right? And it's not always going to apply to you. So I would say approach any of those recommendations with caution. It's a little bit like prescribing without, doing a diagnosis without an exam first. You got to look at your own data to see what's going to work best. But yeah, as a general rule, you want to be experimenting with different formats to see if all you ever give your audience is video, you'll never know that they might love audio even more. If all you give them is written content, you'll never know how much they love photos or videos. So it's always a good idea to at least experiment, try out a couple different things and see what shows up in your data as being a high performer.
Now, I'm going a little off script here, but I have a question. How do you know what is most effective? How do you know what's actually reaching are you looking for comments? Are you looking for shares? Are you looking for likes? I mean, what's the engagement that really proves, look, posting something on social is not necessarily going to result in a sale in most cases. What are the key metrics that you think somebody should be looking at after they post the content?
It's such a good question because I think so many times we end up in a world where we're just doing random acts of content and just like throwing stuff out without any idea what we're trying to accomplish or how we'll know if we accomplished it. So, really good point. You want to think about up front, why are you even bothering to post this stuff? What is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? And generally it falls into one of three categories. It's awareness, that's where we're measuring eyeballs. So anything that indicates to you, people are seeing me. So that could be views. It could be, impressions. Depending on the platform, it might be, video plays, for example. Anything that indicates eyeballs saw this, that's a good way for you to measure awareness. If you are trying to build more of a relationship, you're trying to get engagement. That's our second category. So awareness and then engagement. You want to deepen that relationship. You want to look for any metric that indicates an action. So not just eyeballs looking at it. That's great. We want them to do something. So that's where likes, comments, subscribes, whether that's upvoting or, favoriting, whatever the metric happens to be, anything that indicates they're taking some sort of action. If you're working on video or audio, this might be like completion rate or, what percent of the video did they watch through or, did they download the episode? So we're looking at things that indicate an action. And that third category, after awareness, where we're counting eyeballs, and engagement, where we're counting actions, that's the conversion category. And as you mentioned, a lot of what we're doing is not necessarily going to generate a conversion. But if you're creating content on your website, for example, a blog post about how to know when it's time to, what sort of I'm riffing here, so bear with me, but what sort of tooth pain or how do you know when the tooth pain warrants a trip to the dentist? And the end has a call to action that says like schedule an appointment or schedule a consultation. Maybe the content is around how to decide what form of, tooth straightening, realignment, smile therapy is right for you. And again, you have a scheduled consultation. You'd be looking at those buttons as measuring a conversion or a lead. So our blog post about, why you should come in and get a consultation generated however many clicks of that schedule a consultation button or set up a call. The awareness where you're measuring eyeballs, engagement where you're measuring actions, and then conversion where you're measuring whatever that desired action is.
Got it. That was a great answer. So I think one of the issues is that, people don't know what to post. They don't know what type of content to create. I think they don't have someone on their team or they don't want to spend the money to hire someone to do the content for them because there are companies that actually will do that they'll come out to your office, they'll film video, they'll repurpose the stuff. How does someone decide or come up with content, for a dental office in this case?
So there's a lot of different things that you can do to kind of figure out what kind of content you should make for your practice. You're going to want to take that first step we talked about before, which is figuring out like, what am I trying to do here? Am I a new practice that's just trying to gain awareness? I want as many eyeballs in my community as possible. Or am I trying to deepen the relationship with my existing patients, in which case I'm looking for more engagement, or again, conversion, which is not usually our primary goal here, but something to consider because that's going to determine what sort of content you create and probably how much of it and where you put it. So if you are going for awareness, you want to prioritize any type of content that is going to be easy to consume, that you can put in as many places as possible. So an example, you may have an amazing interactive map of your practice that lets people go and tour it and see it, but that can't really live on Facebook. It can't really live on Instagram. It can't really live in email, right? They're going to have to click out. May not be the best option. However engaging it may be, it's not going to help you with get wide distribution for awareness and maximize your eyeballs. So thinking about what type of content is going to work for the maximum eyeballs, which would be written content or video or photos, tend to be widely distributed across most platforms. So that's what I would opt for there. If you're trying to figure out what to talk about, though, the best thing to do is to mine your daily life. I know that sounds silly. Obviously we have like privacy we need to keep in mind. We're not going to be like showing patient faces and mid procedure or anything like that. But What are the questions you're answering throughout the day? What questions do you hear from patients all the time? What's the primary complaint or, the primary thing that you're seeing, a trend that you've noticed that people are more concerned about ABC? For example, I have a young daughter and she goes to a pedo office around here. And when we went in most recently, they asked us, do you have any questions around pacifiers, right? Around pacifier use? Is that something that you're concerned about? If you do, we have a whole guide that could help you learn how that impacts the bite and how you might want to try to wean off of that. So that is that practice owner noticing, listen, a lot of parents are asking me about this. This is something I should probably create some resources around, and I'm going to be proactive about seeing if they need it and sharing that with them to try to build that awareness. So minding your daily life, looking for those questions, trends, things that you're seeing. You interact with your staff all day long. Make sure you're creating content about your staff so that they can get to know them too. They know who's coming,
I think that's great. I really do. I want to switch gears back to the Google My Business page. You talked about how important it was. It's like your home online, in my opinion, other than your website, because when someone's searching for you, it's either, if they know who you are, it's the first thing they're going to see unless they put in your direct website versus typing in the name of the business. If not, and they're looking for dentist near me, it's going to come up on the maps, and you have to look different than everybody else on there. So can you talk about some content? Obviously, reviews is super important. But can you talk about the Google My Business or Google Business profile listing now and what to do about that?
Absolutely. So, the profile listing, what you want to do is look at all the options that are available to you and try to take advantage of as many of them as possible. So, you're going to be offered the option to have sort of a description, an about, a bio, however you want to talk about it. Make sure that's detailed and complete so that people are finding you. You're going to want to take note of what are the common search terms. So, if you are an orthodontist, you want to make sure you're including things like ortho, braces, Invisalign. You're talking about retainers, like all the words that you think people might be searching for if they're looking for an office that has the services and offerings that you do. So think about the keywords. You also want to use as many different media types as possible. So oftentimes I'll see, when I'm working with a business and we go look at their profile and they have like one picture of the outside of their building, which is great. That's helpful. I'm glad someone will know which building is yours when they show up to the address you have listed. But what would also be helpful? If they know what the parking situation looks like, if they know what the front desk staff looks like, or at least the front desk so they know where to go for check-in. If they have an idea of the waiting room to know if it's going to be comfortable or can they bring their stroller inside or not. What do your rooms look like? Where are they going to be? What are your ops? Like, let them see the ops so they know where they're going to be. They're going to feel more comfortable. Maybe do a video that shows, the waiting room in Pano. Like, take advantage of all those different media options and be detailed about it. The other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that these profiles actually have sort of a post, a feed sort of option. So you can have your static photos and videos that live there all the time, but you can also post updates, timely updates. So, as we're recording this, we just had a holiday weekend recently. That would have been a great time for you to post an update if you have any different hours for a specific holiday so that someone comes and sees, yes, here's the waiting room, here's the ops, looks great. But they also see you recently posted, hey, here's what our adjusted hours are for the holiday weekend so that they can be aware of that. It's surprising to me how many folks do sort of a set it and forget it. They go on there, upload a few photos, and then sort of abandon it and hope that it stays there and stays fresh. And it really needs a little bit of love to keep it up to date.
Love it. That's great. That's great. So there's one more topic I wanted to talk about, and I'm just going to flat out ask it. So, when I met your husband is the co-founder and CEO of GroupUps. I was super impressed with that. He's actually going to be, for those that are listening to this podcast, he's going to be on next week's podcast. He's going to be the release. So you'll learn more about GroupUps on that specifically. But can you just let the audience, let's wet the whistle a little bit. Let's wet their beak, as they say, on what GroupUps is and how you found a nice little place in the dental industry.
Yeah, 100%. So, GroupUps is essentially an organization dedicated to helping individual practices get group pricing on equipment. So you don't have to bring the group. We do the grouping for you. You tell us what you're looking for, and GroupUps will work directly with manufacturers and distributors to combine multiple purchases into one time and get you that group rate, even as an individual or maybe small multi-location practice. Basically, it came out of this realization that in many industries, not just dentistry, but individual practices, individually owned businesses, indie businesses of all kinds, we are the backbone of the American economy. We're the backbone of our communities. And yet we don't have access to the efficiencies of scale that come with being, in our case, a DSO, being a chain restaurant, being a corporate entity that has lots of locations. So this realization that if all those independents could work together in some way, or if technology could help us work together, we could get the advantage of some of those efficiencies of scale and be better able to serve the communities that we live in, that our money flows back into, and just better able to make a living, make the American dream come true, so to speak. So that's really what Group Ups is all about.
So it's interesting because we talk about the buying power that DSOs have, and there's all these other group purchasing organizations that you pay a fee to get the discounts that are going to be applied. In this case, if you want to purchase a CBCT scanner, you would contact you would set up the group, you would get the buying power, and then you basically take a small percentage of the savings that you're saving them due to the group being established. So in this case, you're only paying for the performance of the company. You're not paying any other fees to be involved.
Exactly. So two things that were really important when we were first putting Group Ups together, and I'm sure Yasin will talk about this next week. The first thing was we wanted to make sure that it was abundantly clear that we were on the side of the practice owners, that our compensation, as you said, the only way we make money is by saving you as much money as possible, because our fee is based on a percentage of the savings. So at any given point, we want the same thing as the doctor. We want to get you the thing that you need at the best possible price. So that's always going to be our goal, where we're aligned. Our incentives are aligned. And I think that's really important because, as we talked about earlier, it's a skeptical environment. You never know, if somebody strolls into your practice with a suit and says they can get you a good price. You're like, who's this clown over here? Like, I don't know if I can trust this guy, right? So trying to keep those incentives aligned. But also, as you said, this is not just like a standing discount or a discount code. This is like dynamically grouping up. So let's say, just as an example, you mentioned CBCTs. Let's say we have 25 doctors around the country who are in the market for a CBCT in the next 3 to 6 months. That gives us DSO level buying power to go to those manufacturers and distributors and say, look, we're about to help you get, 20, 25 of these CBCTs. How can you apply efficiencies of scale to bring that price way down? And it lets them compete against each other. Like, let them vie for your business and see who's going to get you the best possible price. So you're getting the same equipment from the same manufacturers, the same distributors that you know and love, same warranties. We're just helping you do it a little more efficiently.
Yeah, that sounds great. So anything that we have not covered that you want to discuss?
So the only thing I'll say is I think a lot of times when you're a business owner, like a practice owner, you have this mindset of like, well, I'm not a creative, like I'm a dentist. I got into this not because I like doing Instagram reels and, Facebook Live and all this other stuff. Like that's not what I'm here for. So I just want you to know that these are things that are absolutely doable for you. They can be done very efficiently within the existing confines and staff and resources you have if you're mining your everyday, interactions for content opportunities. And it's something that you are absolutely creative enough to do. I don't want people to have this like insecurity of like, I'm not a podcast guy. I'm not a writer. You have these skills. And if you don't, there are tools and talent that can help you bridge those gaps. So hopefully you will find a way to share your story, because I am positive that your patients and your prospects are waiting to hear it.
Well, that was great. This was great content. I think we can talk for hours upon hours with what we're talking about here. But we only have 35 to 37 minutes or so. So in the time we have remaining, I'm going to go over, I'll do a lightning round Q&A. So like I said, a sentence or two max for these answers. We'll go through eight or 10 of them and then wrap up. So what are 3 adjectives that describe your strengths?
Creative. Fun. Am I allowed to say fun? I feel like you can't call yourself fun, but I think I'm fun. And I think efficient. I like to be very focused and process oriented in the way I do my work.
Perfect. What have you given up on that you wish you never had?
Oh, that's so good. I think I really wanted to be a ballerina when I was a kid. I don't know that I have the physical aptitude any longer, but I think, who knows? There's an alternate reality where I'm center stage.
That's great. Do you have a system in place to keep yourself organized?
Oh yeah, I mean, endless systems. I am a systems I think I just said, right? Like I'm a systems and process person. So, we could probably talk about that for a few hours, but I'm all about the right software, about automation, and about optimizing for efficiency in every area of life.
Do you use AI at all?
I do. I do use a little bit of AI.
Okay. How do you capture and keep track of ideas? Do you keep a notebook? Do you do voice memos?
I do two things. One, I send reminders to myself whenever I'm not in an environment where I can write it down. So, hey, remind me in 3 hours when I get home that I want to do a blog post about XYZ. So I do that. And then I also carry a notebook with me everywhere. And I'm a physical notes kind of person.
Describe Mondays for you with one word.
Fine. They're just fine. I think I'm really blessed to like the work that I do. So I don't get Sunday scaries and dread Mondays the way a lot of people do.
Okay. Who is one person you'd love to have as a mentor?
All right, I'm going to go with someone who is no longer accessible. I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg was such a badass, and I would have loved to learn more about her and from her.
All right, that's great. Do you have a favorite business podcast?
Okay, so my friend Jay Kenzo, who works on Creator Kitchen with me, just came out with a brand new show called How Stories Happen. That is sort of like deconstructing stories of, creators and storytellers like us. And that show is just incredible. So How Stories Happen.
Okay, that's great. Who has been your greatest inspiration?
I think it's my little one. I mean, I obviously had inspiration before then, but there's this newfound motivation when you have a little person looking up to you to not only be your best, but do your best.
Okay. This one is a tricky one. If there were 3 things that you can change with a magic wand, what would they be?
Well, I got a lot of ideas that we probably shouldn't put onto the airwaves, but I think I would like to eliminate hunger. I think that's one of the saddest and should be most easily solvable things. So giving people access to food. I think I'd like to reduce a lot of the military spending around the world. I just feel like it's causing a lot of problems and just causing drama that doesn't need to happen. And probably like unlimited supply of ice cream. I gotta get selfish with at least one of them, right?
All right. Nothing wrong with that. Two more questions. What was the first thing you wanted to be when you grew up?
Okay, so I mentioned ballerina before, but the first thing I wanted to be was a dump truck rider because I just thought it looked so fun to stand on the back of a dump truck, if I'm being totally honest.
All right. And that was, what is one subscription, either business or personal? So one subscription that you cannot live without.
I love Grammarly. So if you are a writer, especially if you're not, and you're creating a lot of written content, or in my case, like helping other people with their written content, Grammarly is a really good tool to help save time and make the writing more clear, more concise, more efficient.
Well, as I suspected, and I told you beforehand, I thought this was going to be an amazing episode. You are amazing. And obviously you're made for this type of, product, speaking, podcasting. You can just see it. This flowed so beautifully, and I really appreciate it. How can people get in touch with you if they want to find out more information about how you potentially can help them?
So the wonderful thing about me from a discovery standpoint is I'm very search optimized. So as long as you spell my name right, Deziel, you will find me on your social platform of choice. My website is just melaniedeziel.com, and you can learn all about my books and speaking and the ways that I help companies get more creative and get more efficient.
And I think you wanted to throw out an offer to the viewing or listening audience.
We do, yes. So we will share with you in the show notes. We'll get the code for you. I have a bunch of resources on my website that help with content. So things like guides for headlines for your content, coming up with calls to action that will create engagement. We talked about how to optimize for engagement earlier, and a workbook that's going to help you come up with a bunch of, up to 1,000 content ideas. So we'll get you that discount code and make sure that if you go check out those resources, you're able to get them at a Friends of Len discount, if you will.
This was awesome. You were amazing. I really appreciate it. Guys, if you listen to this episode and you need help or you want to create more content, please reach out to Melanie and see how she can help you. If your colleagues do, please let your colleagues know as well. Have them download and view the episode. Subscribe to the episode. That's really helpful for me. As many of you know, I just recently won the People's Choice Award for Best Podcast from my peers, which was a great honor to win. So I appreciate that as well. As many of you know, I have an event in September called Supercharge Your Dental Practice. It's in Scottsdale, Arizona, September 27th and 28th, 2024 at the Scott Resort and Spa. Go check out superchargeyourdentalpractice.com and use the code RAVING to save $100 on registration at the event. We're expecting close to 300 people this year, so I'm super excited to have that event. And I want to thank the sponsors, both Dental Intel and the doc sites, for their support. Melanie, you were terrific. Thank you so much for joining me today. And we'll talk to everyone soon. Have a great day, everyone. Remember, your reputation matters.